Welcome, low ego action heroes. This is Debbie Levitt from Delta CX. We're a full service CX and UX agency. Check us out. And welcome to today's micro lesson that I'm calling Creating UX Research Screener Surveys. Now, before we get started, I'm going to give you some general information, but since this is an interactive adventure, if you have, we're gonna do this as improv. If you are watching live and you want to give me a sample audience for which you would need to write a screener survey because you're going to do some research, throw it at me, and we're going to do this as improv. I have nothing planned today other than I am ready to create a survey. So tell me about the audience you wish you could research with, and I'll show you how I would write the survey that would help weed them in and out. And you can make it complex and specific if you'd like. Quick note, we are not streaming to LinkedIn today. It was broken, so this is going live only on YouTube. If you have some buddies who usually watch the show on LinkedIn, please tell them I've not abandoned them, but I was getting error messages from LinkedIn and I cannot fix them. So please let everybody know the best choice, of course, is to subscribe here. It is free, it is ad-free, and it's not sponsored, and it's extra fun. You can do fun emojis. So that's a quick note there. So first, let's talk about screener surveys in general while I wait for your thoughts and ideas on this stuff. Hi, Aitan. Thanks for the extra pandas. So when would you run a screener survey? I would run a screener survey. Thank you for the pandas. I would run a screener survey when I am going to do moderated or unmoderated research or testing where we actually care about who does the research or testing, who the participants are. Even when some clients say our audience is everybody, I go try to collect some of those marketing demographics or segments or buckets, and I try to, hi Charlene, hi Marta. I try to get as much information I can about our groups. You know, I've talked a lot this year about some of the research we did earlier this year on one of our Delta CX projects, and all they really knew about their audience was some people are B2B and some people are B2C. That's what we had to go with. So we had to kind of work from there. So just know that if your company or project team doesn't exactly know who the target audience is with strict demographics or super personas, you can still create a screener survey that will help you find the right participants. Also note that as you are planning this research, note that recruiting, writing the survey, getting it out there, dealing with the responses, scheduling people and communicating with them can take weeks. This is why some companies have the job of research coordinator. This is usually the bane of people's existence and one of many reasons why I am working on my own startup to solve this problem. We hope it'll be live next year. I've been teasing it for months, but it's just kind of dragged on, but I promise you it's still happening behind the scenes. We call it Colloquio with 2 L's. Colloquio. It's not coming yet. We are still designing it. Now we're designing the tough stuff. So originally the apprentices were working on the easy and medium stuff, and now the tough stuff. So screener surveys are part of oh, thank you, Marta. Thank you so much for the subscription. Yay. Very sweet of you. So the screener survey is really important, and we'll be talking about it today. Remember that sometimes you think, well, I'm just going to use our company's customers, or my client's going to get me some people. You still have to go through, in most cases, a good screener survey process where you have to look at the data, because even if the client supplies people or you're working from existing customers, you probably still want to try to make sure that you're getting a good split of different types of people. You might want people with accessibility needs and people without accessibility needs. You might want men and women and other genders. You might want certain age groups. So you wouldn't just say, yeah, are you a customer? Go do our test. You still want to try to control your participants and make sure you're trying to get either these equal splits or whatever were your preferred ratios for these different people. That means you end up with multiple buckets. Do the math. If you are looking at multiple genders, multiple age groups, B2B and B2C, people who live in America and people who live in Canada, by the time you multiply all these out, you've got lots of groups. And it's going to take a lot of time and work to deal with finding the right people, trying to schedule them. Oh, no, they didn't schedule. Invite 2 more people like that. Okay, did they schedule? Super, super manual. And again, my future startup will fix this, but for now, this ends up being usually quite manual, very often in an Excel spreadsheet or Google Sheet. Just ask Kralitsa, because she did it for us earlier this year. Someone hire her. So the screener survey becomes really important. And to me, one of the most important things you can do with the screener survey is weed out the wrong people fast. Nobody wants to waste their time on a survey that is not for them. So one of the things we'll be practicing today is how do we ask the disqualifying questions as early as possible so that if people really should be disqualified, we get them out of the survey as soon as possible and not waste their time. So again, I'm going to ask everybody as part of our improv adventure, tell me a sample audience that you would like to try to recruit for in a study, and I will show you how I will build a survey for that audience. That shows we're super live and I'm taking requests. We do have a request, so we'll start with this one, but send your requests in. I think we have time for me to do a few of these. Someone says, anybody above age 12 traveling to the UK and needing a COVID test. It could be UK people returning to the UK, but we might want more people who are not resident in the UK and coming to the UK. So first of all, there's going to be different privacy and other laws around talking to minors. So chances are, unless you're really hoping to talk to 13-year-olds about this, I would probably cut it off at 18 and make sure you're talking to adults who are allowed to sign your consent form, your legal form saying, I agree to be in this study and I understand the privacy and I understand I'm going to be recorded. I probably would not deal with the whole underage minor thing unless I really had to. And then you might have to check with the laws of your area or your lawyer at your company. You might have to interview them with a parent or legal guardian present. So just double check on that. So let's work with what we've got here, which is, let's say, age 18 and up, who are foreigners traveling to the UK or UK people coming back, and they are going to need to get a COVID test. And let's say we want to get a bunch of these people, and let's imagine it's people who plan to travel to the UK in the next month or so, before the summer pretty much ends. So let's flip over to my screen and we will start building this together. And as I do it, feel free to ask questions or raise concerns. This is a conversation, even though it sometimes sounds like a monologue. So this should switch us to my screen. Yes. Okay. Oops, wrong screen. Okay, great. Now, first of all, when it comes to screener surveys, you can be tool agnostic. I am a paid customer of Alchemer, definitely not sponsored. I'm paying them. So not sponsored. But of course, just because I'm using Alchemer doesn't mean you have to. People use Google Forms, SurveyMonkey, all hashtag not sponsored. Totally up to you. So again, just because I'm using Alchemer doesn't mean you have to. Pick whatever you like. I'm using Alchemer. I'm on a paid plan. I pay about $1,000 American dollars a year. Ouch, ouch, it hurts. I wish they had a better, cheaper plan with the features I need, but they don't. So, so we can start with some questions that will certainly disqualify people quickly. And again, we can easily reorder these questions later if we feel like we didn't do the right thing. For now, let's just start getting some questions up and we'll think about the order. So we know that we need to ask people their age because we might want to meet different age groups, but we know that they need to be adults. So we might ask, for example, what is your age? And again, I'm not going to get too hung up on how I phrase the question. You might have a better phrasing of the question or something standard your company uses. Totally up to you. Also, you can decide, is this question required? And to me, since this is going to qualify or disqualify someone, I would make this required. So I might say under 18 to, we can do the usual demographic buckets, up to you. You can do decades, however you want. 25 to 34, 35 to 44, 45 to 54. I'm still in that one for a few more years. 55 to 64. And again, depending upon how you do it, you might say 65 or older. And that's a question. And people can pick one. So we've done radio buttons. You could do a drop list if you want to hide all of these things and make people click to drop a list and pick their thing. That's up to you. Drop lists are good for super long lists like states and provinces and regions and countries. But this could go either way, up to you. We also want to find out if they are traveling to the UK in the next month or so. That might end up being our first question. If they are not traveling to the UK in the next month or so, we just might not want to talk to them. So think about that as well. So let's say, are you traveling to, doesn't like my spelling, to the UK on or before, let's just come up with a date. Let's say September 30th, 2021. And this one's pretty easy. We can make this yes or no. Because this is binary. Either you are or you aren't. We don't need a maybe. We don't need an I don't know. And again, because this could knock you right out, we might want to move this one first, which I can drag or drop, or I can click move. But the age is could knock you out. If you're under 18, we don't want to talk to you, so that could knock you out as well. I guess will you need a COVID test? Lots of people do have to get COVID tests. I guess another good question, though this is not going to make or break it, so we can put this one maybe on the second page. Usually I'll do my first page of make or break questions, and that way I can disqualify them and end the survey after the first page. And then the second page might have questions that help me put people into buckets and get a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but don't disqualify people. So maybe we have a question for, are you a UK resident? Are you a UK resident? Now, there's no right or wrong answer to this question. This is because the person who gave me this idea does want to meet some people traveling to the UK and also wants to meet some people resident in the UK who are returning. So we can say yes and we can say no, but this won't disqualify anybody. This just allows our team to choose some of each, some residents, some non-residents, in whatever ratio we decide. Aitan says, some travelers, I think, need antigen instead of PCR. Should we ask that too? Okay, according to the person who's feeding me information behind the scenes, they need to have a PCR test done. So let's ask them that. That sounds like a possible qualifying or disqualifying. What country are you traveling from? You need to know that? If you need to know what country you are traveling from, do we then have to give them a drop list of every country on the planet? I'm asking Charlene because she's the person secretly feeding us information behind the scenes. Meanwhile, let's try another question asking, let's see, will you require a PCR test for COVID or whatever? I don't know the right way to ask this question. Whoever's making this will have some domain knowledge around these tests and around how to phrase this. So just note, I might not be phrasing this very well, but you get the idea of what I'm trying to ask, because we want to find people who need the PCR test. So that means people who say no will also be weeded out. Charlene says, yes, that defines what kind of tests you need. Just say amber, green, red. Oh, so you're saying I don't have to ask if they need a PCR test? The system is going to know that by what country they're coming from? Okay, so hypothetically, we could ask a follow-up question, and let's pretend it's got a drop-down menu because it would be every country in the world. And I think there's a common answer library here. Let's see if we have countries. Here we go. Countries. Charlene says, yes. Okay. So Charlene, do I need, let's save this question and come back to it. Give your question a title. Oh, it's still populating them. Okay, Z is for Zimbabwe. Charlene, do I need to ask them if they need a PCR test or not, or will we figure that out from what country they're coming from? What country are you? No. Okay, so again, you're probably going to need to clean up what I'm saying, y'all. But we need to find out what country they are in before the UK, whether they live there or they were visiting there. We might not care. No, that's based on the country they're coming from. Okay, I'll delete the other question. What country are you flying from on your trip to the UK? And again, that's a crappy question. I'm sleepy. You'll write a better one, but you see where this is going. Okay, let's save this question. And it sounds like we don't need the question that asks if you need a PCR test. Yes, Charlene, no? What I can also do is we can also start writing some of our logic. And again, you ultimately do want some sort of screener survey system, software, that allows you to create logic. If you don't have logic, then you're going to make everybody take the whole survey, and at the end, they won't be right, and they won't love that. She says, nope, we don't have to ask for PCR. Okay, remove. So I can say skip and disqualify logic. And this is at the page level. So I can say, if are you traveling to the UK is no, or what is your age is under 18, then this person is disqualified, and you can write your sample message here. Sorry, you don't qualify to take this survey, or whatever it is. Thank you for filling out our survey, but unfortunately you are not whatever. You're not who we want to meet. Aitan says, does it matter the purpose of their visit? Does it matter if it's vacation or business? I don't know. We'll find that out. What this will automatically do is it will weed those people out. They will never get to finish the survey. And that means we will never bug them. We won't make them go through the whole survey, especially if it's a little bit on the longer side. Charlene says, you can ask which color is your country. Is it green, amber, or red? Because red's not allowed in the UK. They'll get disqualified. Well, that's tough. I don't know what my country color is. So I guess, here we go with Larry Marine's knowledge. Can we just ask them their country and we choose who to disqualify because we know if it's green, amber, or red? I would rather ask people their country, because they'll know that, but they may not know. They would have to stop the survey and go look up that. Red's not allowed in the UK. They'll get disqualified. Okay, we could try that. Are you a UK resident? And what country are you flying from? Let's see, what else might we want to know about these people to see if we want to include them in our study. Sometimes I will ask the question while Charlene gives us more information. I might ask a question that says something like, if you are selected, our study requires you to do a 60-minute recorded Zoom interview in the next 2 weeks. Would you be available for that, or would you agree to that? Again, you can phrase these questions better than I can. Would you agree to that and be available for an interview session? And again, that's going to be yes or no. And I've actually used this seems weird. I've actually used this question in screener surveys, and I've gotten people saying no. And of course, I disqualify them immediately because if they are not going to agree to do a session, I am not going to start trying to recruit them. Charlene says, are you vaccinated, and which vaccine did you get? Now, Charlene, is that curiosity, or does that remove them from the study? If they're vaccinated, are you not going to talk to them? Or if they're unvaccinated, you're not going to talk to them. So do we need skip logic for that? This one probably does need skip logic because I probably don't want to include them if, let's move this to the last question on this page. And I can also add to my survey logic. Oop, I moved the wrong question. Move this question for now back to 2. This was, if you are selected, move that one. Oops, overlapping UX adventures. Hold on. Says business or vacation not required. Okay. Let's move this to this page. Okay, so I moved. If you are selected, would you agree to that and be able to do an interview session? Yes. And of course, now I have to add to my logic saying, or if they didn't agree to that, dump them. So really, any one of these can dump you out of my survey. So if they say no, so if they're not traveling to the UK, if they're under 18, or if they don't want to be part of the study, they are toast. That's great. Another bunch of questions you're going to need probably no matter what, unless you're using a panel and they supply you with this information automatically, is name, email, and sometimes phone number, depending upon what you want to. What is your full name? You might want to require this so that we make sure we get their name. You might want, what is your email? What is your email? You will not be added to a mailing list, but if you are selected, you will be emailed about booking your interview session. Something like that. Something to help people feel like you're not going to spam them. Charlene says we need only people who are vaccinated with Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson. Okay, so that means we've got some more qualifying questions to ask up here. Whew. So, depends how many questions we want to put on page 1, but let's give it a try and see how it feels. Let's add a question here that says, have you been fully vaccinated? Required. Yes. And again, we could do, we could do, have you been vaccinated? Yes. 2 shots. Yes. 1 shot. Remembering that Johnson & Johnson is 1 shot. No. Okay. Iton says, what about gender? I'm going to get there. So have you been vaccinated? We need to know, and then we need to know which vaccine they had, because you don't want to meet AstraZeneca people, according to Charlene. So that means the question is, which vaccine did you receive? Require this question. We can say Pfizer. We can say Moderna. We can say Johnson and Johnson. We can say AstraZeneca. And we can say other. Maybe other. Please write in so we can find out what the heck they got. And then what we'll do is we'll screen out anybody who got AstraZeneca. Now, you've probably realized that we need some more logic here too. We don't want to ask people what vaccine they received if the answer is they have not been vaccinated. So we also need some survey logic there to make sure that if people say no to this, then they never see which vaccine did you get. And it sounds like Charlene doesn't want to meet people. So she doesn't want to meet people who haven't been vaccinated, and she doesn't want to meet people who got AstraZeneca. So we need like a whole bunch of logic going on here. So for the way that Alchemer works, I just go back into my question and I build logic and I say only show this question based on an answer to a previous question. So I would say, have you been vaccinated is yes 1 shot or yes 2 shots. So only show the which vaccine question did you receive if people pick yes 1 shot or yes 2 shots or yes 1 shot. If they pick no, they will not see this question. We can also add to our disqualification logic because we also don't want to meet people who, so here's more ors, because any one of these could be true and we don't want these people. Have you been vaccinated? No, we don't want that person. And add condition, have you been, which vaccine did you get? We want it to, is not AstraZeneca. That should work. But if I got that logic wrong, we'll know when we test it. Let's see. Well, hold on. I think I have that logic wrong. If which vaccine did you receive is AstraZeneca, then disqualify. Okay, so remember, we're picking the answers that would disqualify someone. AstraZeneca, according to Charlene, would disqualify you. Now, I can do a quick preview of this and see how it's going so far. Are you traveling to the UK? Let's say yes. Here's my age. Have you been vaccinated? I've had one shot. I had Moderna. And I don't want to be in your study. So this should disqualify me. Next. Sorry, you don't qualify. So remember, something really important about your screener surveys is to keep testing them, and especially anything that has logic or disqualification on it. Test, test, test. I would go back through it again, and I would say, I'm not traveling to the UK, but I'm 49, and I had one shot, and I had Moderna, and I'd be happy to be interviewed. Next. Sorry, you don't qualify. So make sure you're going back, and everything that could disqualify or qualify someone, make sure the survey logic is working. If your survey logic is broken, your screener survey might be poop. Charlene, would you be trying to pick people from different age groups and different genders? Aitan says, how do we make sure we're recruiting diverse people? That's where we're going to find out now. Kayleen says, have you ever encountered participants at the interview who were not qualified for the study and wanted the money? I recently agreed to be a participant for someone in a boot camp because, believe it or not, I do help people out sometimes. And he starts the study with me, and I realize I am absolutely not who he wants to talk to. And he didn't ask the right questions to have correctly recruited me. So that shows the importance of the screener survey. And so I don't think I've ever had someone who didn't qualify. I can think of someone last year where we had put in the thing that this study was going to be done in English, and we require you to be comfortable with conversational English. And we ended up with someone who didn't speak English. I am not sure whether or not that person got paid. We left it to our client to decide that. We gave them their information, but that person had, that one had to end pretty fast when we realized they did not speak English. They didn't want to talk to us. They wanted to text chat and put everything into Google Translate. So that person probably didn't get paid and probably shouldn't. So yes, it's really important to make sure this is qualified, not qualified. So Charlene says, yes, we need good diversity for this research. So great. Let's ask a few more questions on page 2 where we're not going to disqualify them. We're just going to start putting people into different buckets. So let's go with gender. And if gender is important, and again, it might not be. And I'm trying to ask people things like gender and ethnicity as little as possible, as close to never as possible, because the difference between men or women or non-binary or other people when it comes to vaccinations may not matter. The differences between white or black or Asian or South American or Indian or whatever may not matter. So I would say if it really doesn't matter and you just want humans, then don't ask it. But if you're very concerned, if we don't specifically ask ethnicity, we might not meet enough black people, then say, okay, ask the ethnicity. But I remind people, be clear that that's not going to weed them out of the study. So let's imagine we ask gender, which again, I'm trying to get away from, but let's take a pass at it just in case. What is your gender? You can make it required if you'd like. You can make it not required, but I'll say required and I'll give people a way out. So I will say female, I will say male, I will say non-binary, I will say other, which they can write in and make their own answer. Or they can say, let's put down here, prefer not to say. So hopefully that will cover everybody. I know there are obviously many gender choices that someone could put in here. I'm hoping this will be good, but if I'm getting it wrong, then people who know more about diversity, equity, and inclusion than I do, tell me the right choices to put, please. Thank you. So let's see. So we're curious about that, but we're not eliminating anybody because of it. If Charlene is saying we need good diversity, then we've got gender, we've got country they're from, we have age range, and we could do another parameter if we want, which could be, I don't like to ask household income. Like that really doesn't matter. Or, you know, do you own your home or do you have kids? I find that usually doesn't matter, but we could ask, Charlene, is it important to ask if they have accessibility needs, where we might want to meet people who are in wheelchairs or use assistive devices or have hearing issues? Like, is that important to meet people who have different disabilities or superpowers as they may be? If so, Charlene says yes. So let's say that we have, these kinds of questions are hard. I always feel like I don't want to ask anybody anything too personal in the form of a survey. Typically, when I start my research, one of my semi-icebreaker questions is usually, do you have any vision, hearing, mobility, or other issues or diagnoses, such as dyslexia, that may affect how you use a website or app? That's if I'm testing something digital. Because I remember one time we asked someone that, and she was like, sometimes I have problems with my legs, but that doesn't affect how I use websites and apps. And I was like, okay. So Abby says, for example, for a maternity app, would you recruit male when it's not product requirement or target audience? Really depends. You know, if the maternity app is only for women, then you might not want to meet men. But if you think there's something about your app where a father or a male friend is going to follow a pregnant woman or a recent new mom on her journey, then we can meet men also. I think it really depends on who you think this app is for. So when it comes to accessibility stuff, I might just ask a more general question here, or maybe give them a box to write in their own thing. And that way, yes, that means we would have to take the extra time to read their answer, but I think that can sometimes be worth it because then we can make sure we're really recruiting the people we want to meet. So I might say, do you have any accessibility needs, disabilities, diagnoses, or other conditions that might affect how you use apps? I think Charlene is working on an app, but this could be that might affect how you travel. You know, this was about traveling. So maybe we want to meet people who have accessibility issues with their travel. So it really depends on what you're asking here, unless you just want to ask in general. Do you have this, that, you know, and your choices could be no, and the other could be yes with a write-in. So we might say, yes, please give some details, something like that. But again, up to you. And also, if you're worried that people are going to give you medical information and that is somehow in violation of privacy, then we don't want to ask this, or we don't want to ask them for details. Again, you have to decide what's best for you, and of course, what fits in with any privacy laws or privacy expectations for for the user. So if it's inappropriate to ask people to give details, then I might just say yes. They'll have a yes and a no option, and we'll just trust that anybody who picks yes truly does have something that fits into accessibility needs, and they don't say something strange later, but there you go. This one is binary. This is either yes or no, so I'm happy with binary on that. Let's see. Charlene says also test centers. What do you mean test centers? Have you gone to one? Are you going to one? Will you go to one? And also, are you sure we have to ask these questions on the screener survey? Because we now have 11 questions. It's getting a little bit long, so I always try to keep these as short as I can, but it will be what it is. Also, I like to customize the ending thing. By default, Alchemer puts this, but this is not really applicable here. You could say, thank you for taking our survey. If you qualify for our research study, we will be in touch via email. Sometimes I tell them what email to expect to hear from, just in case they happen to notice my email in spam. We will be in touch via email from deb@deltacx.com. Something like that. Debbie and the team at Delta CX. Something a little friendly. There's also room here for you to put a page title or like a welcome message, but I usually don't. You can do that. Sometimes we put a welcome message saying we are looking for people to be part of our study, but nobody, how often do they read it? They just start answering questions. But sometimes, especially if there is an incentive to do this, I might add something like that. So we might say, we are looking for participants for a 60-minute live interview session with one of our researchers. This would take place in the next 2 weeks. If you are selected and complete the interview session, you will receive, whatever, 50, 75, 100, be generous with our fake study, $100 as a Visa gift card, something like that. Charlene says, what's the ideal number for screener questions? To me, it's just as few as possible to weed out the people we don't want to meet and give us enough demographic or interest or preference data to put people into their buckets. So we've got some information that weeds them out on page 1. We now have, are you traveling? What's your age? Have you been vaccinated? Which vaccine did you get? And are you willing to be part of our study? And then in the informational side, what country are you flying from? Which behind the scenes you can use for whether they're red zone, orange zone, green zone, whatever it is. Are you a UK resident? Which again wasn't going to weed anybody out, but that way you can meet some residents and some non-residents. What's your gender? Now you can meet some people of different genders. Do you have accessibility needs? Meet some people with accessibility needs, meet some people without. Name and email. Some people add phone number as a backup if they find they're sending emails and the emails are not being replied to. They sometimes try to call people. That's up to you. You can add the phone number. So R for Everything, good to see you, says, do you think sometimes it's better to not show them they're disqualified so they don't try to answer the survey again differently, especially they know there's an incentive? I think Alchemer is set up to not let them answer the survey again, but you're certainly right. If you think that people are going to try to game the system and keep answering until they get through the survey, then sure, you could make it so that nothing weeds them out and they have to answer all 11 questions and they never know, or you mark it behind the scenes as disqualified and they don't know. That's up to you. Usually I'm telling people they're disqualified. Just Mag says, hey, all, have we talked about red herrings? I know they're used for surveys, but not sure about a screener. Such as, Mags, what's your example? Charlene says, take gender and accessibility away. I don't know, Charlene. Only if you want to make sure you're getting men, women, non-binary, other people, then you need it there just so you can create some balance. So you're not ending up talking to 30 women. If you do want to make sure you're speaking to some people with accessibility needs, then you do want to ask it so that you can make sure that you recruit specifically for people with accessibility needs. So I wouldn't say take these out just to try to meet some sort of magic number. To me, the number of questions is as few as possible that set our study up for success. If that has to be 11 questions, it's 11 questions. If that can be 4 questions, it's 4 questions. It's totally up to whatever works for the study. Also, as I'm going, any other questions? Because we only have 20 more minutes. This has really flown by. But I want to make sure you see how I do it and some of the thought that I put into when I'm creating these studies. Remember, other people might have different styles than mine, so check out my style, check out their style, and make the best of both of them. Mag says, red herring, if they select the red herring, they're not reading and answering randomly. I usually will only put in kind of the red herring thing or the weird or the question where you can't really tell what I'm shooting for if there's like a checkbox question. So here, are you traveling to the UK? It's pretty clear I'm looking for someone who is. Could we ask that another way that's a little less obvious as to what the right answer is? Sure. Let's think about what Maggie's saying, and let's take a look at a variation of this question. When is the next time you plan to travel to the UK? Now we'll give people a bunch of choices, and they won't know the right answer. In the next 2 weeks, in the next 4 weeks, in the next 6 weeks, in the next 8 weeks, +2 months from now, not at all. Now, ultimately, let's pretend Charlene only wants 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and the 8 weeks, 2 months, and not people are going to be weeded out. This would be an example of a way to ask the question, so it's not as clear which is the right answer that's going to get you through the process. Because before, when we said, are you traveling to the UK in the next 6 weeks or 2 months, whatever it was, clearly we were looking for yes. So what Maggie's pointing out is that, there are ways that you can write the question. So she said, when I was in e-commerce, we would put fake stores, and if we've selected them, we'd filter that out. Yeah, so what Maggie's talking about is questions where you have a totally BS answer. Oops, hold on, let me move this to the top. This is the first thing on the page. And if anyone chooses the BS answer, it's clear that they lied or whatever. Like you put things that don't exist. Who remembers the slide from the HR training where it asked if you knew the UX tool organic chocolate milk? And remember, we all looked at each other and we said, that doesn't exist. So of course, if someone says, oh yes, I have 3 years of experience with organic chocolate milk, this is the red herring that Maggie's talking about. Now we know you're a dirty dog liar because there's no such thing. Maggie says, I remember that one. So you can certainly build questions like that where some answers are known fakes, and if somebody picks one of those fakes, whether you disqualify them and they know it, or you disqualify them behind the scenes because they picked the fake, is up to you. So for example, you might say, which website have you bought off of recently? eBay, Amazon, blah, 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 made up name that doesn't exist, made up name that doesn't exist, made up name that doesn't exist. And now if they pick these made up names that don't exist, they're either a bot or they're a liar, because these things don't exist. So that's what Maggie's talking about if you would like to trick people. So again, there are ways to ask the questions that are simple. Are you traveling to the UK in the next 6 weeks? Yes, no. Super simple, but a little bit of a hint of what we are going to be looking for in our study. If you want to disguise that a little bit so they're not sure which of these answers will get them in or out, then you need more choices there. We do that also sometimes with check boxes, where I'll say like, which website have you shopped on recently? And there's 9 websites and there's check boxes. And, obviously if they say there's certain ones I've hoped they've shopped. And so I'm looking for those. Kayleen says, did people really pick a fake store? And Maggie says, yep. So yeah, this stuff happens. So it's up to you whether or not you think you want to put in the type of question that has some sort of weird, sneaky answer, that a bot or a liar would pick. That's up to you. I usually don't include those, but I will sometimes make my question answer set a little more complex. So it's not as obvious what the right answer is. Like from this age thing, if we just said, are you under 18? Are you over 18? Pretty clear we're looking for over 18. But let's imagine here we only wanted to talk to people who were 35 to 54. Well, they don't know what the right answer is here. So that's why I do sometimes add a little bit of those extra choices. Can help me when we're making our buckets, or help Ralica. Bye, Abby. Catch you later. Of course, this will be archived on the Micro Lessons playlist. And please remember to, let's put it up, subscribe here, especially if I won't be able to stream to LinkedIn anymore. So please do subscribe here on YouTube. It is free, and we're happy to see you. Itan says, so after the survey, how do we choose what people get to an interview? What if we get 500 answers? Well, Ralica and I can tell you, you will get if you're doing something right, you will get 500 answers. This is where you then have to take your survey results and dump them into usually something like Excel or Google Sheets. My future startup will fix all this. And then you have to start going through them. You have to start sorting them and filtering them and saying, okay, let's meet this person, but not this person. Or this person's plan A, this person's plan B, this person is definite no. And then you have to start inviting them, and then you have to keep your eye on it and say, okay, now that they're starting to make appointments, are we getting the people we wanted, or are only the women booking time with us? So it's really quite labor intensive, which is why I now estimate days of work for something like this. People are like, recruiting 3 hours. Hey, I've made that mistake. It takes days, if not longer. Maggie says you can put a cap or max on the survey if you want. Yeah, you certainly can. But I have done, I remember I used user interviews last year. Honestly, I do not love them, but I'm kind of stuck using them for the panel. So definitely not sponsored, because I'm not happy with them. And they were, all the things that I put disqualify, I found out later, they were still dumping those people into my results. So I thought like, oh, look, I've got 200 results. I guess I can stop my study. And then I went in and looked at the results, and they had included all the people who should have been disqualified. And I was like, well, crap, turn this back on, collect more people. There was like 40 qualified people. I eventually had, I think, 800 responses. And because they included all the disqualified people, I think 50 of them qualified. It was really sad. So sometimes you do have to let it run, especially when you have a lot of questions like this, and depending upon how many people you want to meet. If Charlene says, hey, we want to meet 4 people, well, okay, that's not going to be a very varied group for starters. You're probably going to want to try to meet 8 of each bucket. And that's going to end up being a lot of buckets. We've talked about age. We've talked about gender. We've talked about some other things that are going to weed people in and out. You might be meeting 40 people. You might be meeting 60 people. So depending upon how many people you want to meet, or how many people you're looking to send to an unmoderated study, that's gonna also affect how long you let this thing run. Sutherland says, ooh, that's rough. It was. And so I've tried to avoid user interviews, but for now it's a panel service with humans. And so I end up having to use it. One fun thing about Alchemer is if you want it, you can test your study and it will give you a bunch of fake answers so you can see how it goes. It also tells you if your survey is really long and boring. So this should take 3 minutes. I usually bump it up. I would tell people this survey will take you 5 minutes. And that's mostly because we didn't ask any open-ended questions. We didn't ask people to write an essay or type too much. Madalena says, why did they include the disqualified people? Do you know? I don't know. I did not expect it to include the disqualified people. They'd written the word disqualify in the field. They'd written the person's answer and the word disqualify in the field that had disqualified them, but they were all still there. So I had to build all of these Excel filters to pull these people out. And it's like... So you can, of course, manually test your own survey where we can take it, which again, I said this earlier, I'll say it again, do it. You should definitely test your survey at least the number of times that you have disqualifying questions to make sure you get disqualified. Invite others to test. Have your coworkers or co-researchers or whatever give it a try and make sure it seems to be functioning correctly. And it also does a fun thing where it will put funny like lorem ipsum and robot test data in. So how many test responses do we want? Let's say 10. Across all branches or for each branch. Let's do that. That's going to give us a lot of test data, but just so you can see it in action. Do we need geographic data? No. Do we need URL parameters? No. Test the logic? Yes. Generate random open text values. So anything that has a typable area, it's going to just put fake text in. So I can say generate, and now it's going to do that. And now I can go see these in individual responses. Oh, why aren't they there? What did I do wrong? Why don't we have responses? Did I not finish building something? Let's take a look. So disqualify, and then finish that. That's weird. It usually gives me a whole bucket of people. Let's try it again. Check them out in results, individual responses. Results, individual responses. Okay, that's weird. I've never seen that happen before. Usually I do this and I get people. So let's try, let's see if I have a logic mistake that makes it impossible. So do not ignore the page logic. Okay. Oh, you know what? We never fixed the logic on the UK question. We still have the logic pointing at the old version of the question. This is why you test everything. I make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, right, Big Bird? So nobody wants to travel to the UK, Charlene says. No, what happened was we changed the question and then we didn't go back and fix the logic. So we don't want people if they're traveling 8 weeks, 2 months, or not at all. Let's say that. Let's try that. We don't want people if they're under 18. We don't want people. Okay, let's do a quick manual test and make sure that if we pick all the right things on the first page, we get through. Do not ignore page logic. I'm traveling in the next 4 weeks. I'm crumbly. I've had a shot. It was Moderna. And I'd happily be part of your interview. This should take us to page 2. If it doesn't, we have a logic mistake. Cool. What country are you flying from? Italy. Are you UK resident? No. What's your gender? Female. Do you have accessibility needs? No. What's your full name? Debbie. What's your email? deb@deltacx.com. Now when I say submit, we should hopefully see the end message, otherwise we have a logic problem. Okay, thank you. Now I didn't have record response turned on, so I should not see my own response among responses. Let's just check. All right. We've got some stuff. We have, 18 people disqualified, 2 completed. Now, why am I not seeing them? I think I'm seeing a little bug. This is Alchemer. They used to be called Survey Gizmo, hashtag not sponsored. I pay a lot of money to them every year. Let's see if that fixing the logic made the automatic ones better. Let's see. Simulate, randomly set submission date, trigger actions, include URL parameters. Let's try this again. Check them out. I don't know. That seemed too fast. Weird, because normally if I have 2 completes, we would see them here. Let's see if they show up in the report. And then, of course, you can export this. Wow, usually I get a report by default. Here we go. Here's my chart. So 2 complete. I can filter out the ones that qualified or disqualified. Is that my segment? I can't remember. So age, so you can see it's filled in some fake information. Oh, I see the fake person was Ecuador and Bahamas. Very good fake choices. Yeah. So, here's some fake names the system put in. Usually it's like quotes from Alice in Wonderland or something. All right. So I can see that at least the bot can get through the survey, but only 10% of the bot could because of all the possible ways you could get disqualified by this thing. Which isn't bad. It just means that if a bot tried to do this, it probably wouldn't go very well. There's a little bit of styling that Alchemer lets you do. This is not design heavy. You can change some of these colors. You can change some of the fonts. You can change how it lays out on mobile, but it is not a visual design heavy system, which I also don't mind. I think a survey is fine being a survey. It doesn't have to be endlessly beautiful. So how does everybody feel about this as a screener survey? Any questions about this? And then, of course, once I got my results, I would go into my report, and I would probably just do like an Excel download. And here we go, report test for screener survey. I think I have to go to that, and then I think I have to do download. So there you go. 2 completed. And I could also filter that out, I think. Create an advanced filter, select a condition. Is qualified or disqualified a condition? That would be nice. I'm not seeing it. I would have to maybe try to figure it out. Response ID, response date, response status. That might filter out. Hold on. Here we go. Completed, partial, disqualified, and include test data. So if I was okay with my fake test data, but I only wanted people who completed, not who partially filled out the survey and not who got disqualified along the way, then I can save that filter, and now it'll filter out the 2 people who fit into that, and I could download from there. Otherwise, I'm downloading all the partially filled out ones and the disqualified ones. So there we go. That is how I would approach building the screener survey. Again, my main goal is page 1, the things that will disqualify them, especially if you're going to show them you've been disqualified, which is up to you. You can always mark it as disqualified and just let them keep going. But I believe in trying to not waste people's time and let them go through. And then remember, test it, test it, test it. I can't tell you how many Google Forms and surveys people send me that I can't even fill out because they haven't tested their own logic, and it makes me crazy, and I feel like they've wasted my time. I10 says, thanks, this was helpful. Yeah, any other questions about screener surveys? So yeah, this was our example. Any other examples people want to give or questions about questions? And again, this is my style. Someone else who teaches research might tell you to do something differently, but this is my style to put make it or break it questions up front. Use logic to end this early for people if we aren't going to work with them. No reason to make them keep filling this out, even if it is only 3 to 5 minutes of their time. And then to use the second page to collect information that isn't make or break, but will help us sort through and find different types of people, whether those are B2C versus B2B, or whether those are age ranges or genders or something else. Excuse me. Madalena says, I really liked how you reframed the will you travel to the UK to not hit the answer you want. It's really interesting. Yeah, thanks. I think that that's a good trick. Sometimes I just go for the easy thing. Do you live in the United States? Yes, no. Well, it's pretty clear I'm looking for people who live in the United States, and I run the risk that people who don't live in the United States say yes just to try to get into the thing. We have to live with that. It is what it is. But yeah, if you want to be a little bit more sneakier, then it's like, gee, I don't know what the right answer is here. Sutherland says, any more good resources to check out that you would recommend? I don't think I've got any suggested resources here. And again, this is all tool agnostic. You can use any survey tool that's got good logic. And I look for tools that have logic at the question level. So remember, this was a question that we didn't show unless they gave a certain answer to the question before. And I like a survey tool that has good page logic and understands that we're either going to have to skip some stuff if they answered a question a certain way, or we just have to disqualify them. And that's what this logic does here. Oops. Here it is. Edit. So if the logic passes, mark the response as disqualified. So that's totally up to you. I think you have the option to mark it as disqualified and have the people keep going. So we could send them to page, I see. If you send them to page 2, you can't mark it as disqualified. But I see what everybody's saying. It might be nice to mark them as disqualified, but let them keep going so they don't try to keep filling it out until they get the thing they think we're looking for. But I think if we write it well enough, they won't know what we're necessarily looking for, like the age ranges or some of these other things. So totally up to you. But remember, we don't want to waste people's time. We want to make sure we're finding the right people for our study. And that means going back to your research plan, your research goals, and making sure you're clear on who you need to meet. I find that so many people don't recruit well enough. In fact, we just had someone in the Slack channel, lovely person, seems to be doing not a boot camp, some volunteer pro bono work, which I always say, do that with a mentor or coach, otherwise you are guessing. And this person wanted all of us to join in on, I guess, was it a card sort that they were doing? And it was for people who use food pantries, but there was no screening. So all of us who may or may not use food pantries, we're going to do a card sort on a website for people who use food pantries. And my thought was, why aren't you recruiting for people who use food pantries or people who visit food pantry websites? We can know this, and that would make your card sort much better data, because then it will have been with the target audience that this is ultimately for. Iton says, Google surveys don't have the page logic option, right? I have to admit, I don't know. Charlene says, some surveys I've seen have date and time available for the interview. If you're qualified, is it worth having that? Great question. I actually recommend against that, because if someone passes your survey logic at the end and you say, great, now book an interview slot with me, what if you end up getting a bunch of 40-year-old women? There goes all of your second page of questions that was going to help you create a diverse audience. If you don't care about a diverse audience and you just want the first X warm humans who make it through your screener, then sure, at the end of it, you can say, you made it through, here's a link to our card sort. You made it through, here's a link to our usability test. First 10 people win. You can certainly do that, but where you really want to recruit for different buckets of people or diversity, like I said in the project we did earlier this year, it was B2B and B2C, but it was also people who'd been to our client's website and people who hadn't been to our client's website. Now, how did we know that? We asked them a question. We asked, which of the following websites have you used to shop for thing our client sells. And then we listed like, what was it, 8 or 10 websites. One of them was our client. 8 or whatever of them were other companies. There was technically no right or wrong answer there, but we used it later to say, aha, they remember that they've been to our site. So these people are in the bucket of people who've seen the site before, and it might feel familiar to them when we show it to them. These people are in the bucket of people who haven't been to this site or don't remember going to this site, and therefore when we take them to it, it should be a fresh new experience. That's also a really good set of buckets to work with. People who know the existing site, tool, experience thing, and people who could be in your target audience but don't know it, and they have super fresh eyes. Maggie says, have we talked about when it makes sense to make something required versus optional? Yeah, I've been making everything required because to me, if it's optional, why is it here? If it's optional, it sounds like something I could just ask during the study. You know, like I'll see sometimes here people will say, you know, how often do you fly to the UK? And I'll say, if it doesn't screen people in or out, or if it doesn't help us with our buckets and our diversity and our groups later, I don't want to ask it. If it's just something I'm curious about, like how often they do this, or how many times a year do you do this, or how much do you tend to spend on this? If you're not going to recruit for that or create buckets from that, I just don't even want to ask it because I don't want this to turn into a marketing survey. And I don't want to give people more questions to answer, especially if I'm going to ask them these things during the actual appointment. So normally I leave that out just to make the survey shorter. But if you have a question you think is optional, you can include it, but obviously ask yourself whether you need to have that question in the screener or if it's really a question you would like to ask during the study, because very often I love to ask those optional questions during the study because I'm going to get stories. I'm going to get a lot more color. If I say, how many times a week do you go food shopping? I can give them a bunch of pre-made answers to choose from in the survey, or I can get them on the appointment and I'll start hearing the stories. Well, we used to shop this, but now because of the pandemic, we do this. Oh, hold on. This is data. This is color. This is information. This is stuff. So I would say required versus optional is up to you. I tend to make pretty much everything required in my screener survey. There is no reason for me to find out later that one of these answers is blank. When I've done that and people left out gender, or they left out accessibility, or they left out what country they live in, or whatever it was, now how am I supposed to include them? I was specifically recruiting for this piece of information. Now I don't know this piece of information, and I don't want to have to write to you, Dear Maggie, you filled out our survey, but you didn't mention whether or not you're a UK resident. Can you please fill this in? Efficiency. Super questions today. So glad Maggie came by to remind us of red herrings. I hadn't thought of that. Any other thoughts or questions on this before we wrap up? Since we are overtime, and I want to make sure that people get their questions answered. I've got a fan blowing on me. Disregard my blowy hair. And remember, tomorrow is office hours, and it is double office hours, morning and late. And the late one will have Darren and Dr. Nick, so it will be a party. Let's see. Checking my messages. Charlene says, do you explain in the beginning a bit of detail what this survey is about and what we're looking for? I think if you prime people for what you're looking for, then you just might get what you're looking for because people manipulate their answers. So typically, as I did here, and you can roll it back, I just said, in the next 2 weeks, we will be conducting a study. You will, if you qualify and you complete the study, you will get whatever incentive, and we'll let you know if you qualify. I don't usually tell people what we're looking for. I don't usually tell people anything because I don't want them to manipulate their answers. I don't want to say, we're looking to do a study with travelers to the UK who are vaccinated but didn't get AstraZeneca. Oh, no, Debbie, it was optional. What was optional? Remember, you're like 40 seconds behind me. What was optional? Maggie. Is Maggie there? Dead air. Nobody likes dead air. Well, I don't know what was optional. This is why I always tell everybody, don't use pronouns on this show, because by the time I see it, I have no idea what you're talking about. It, that, them, these, I have no idea. Any other last questions before we wrap up our micro lesson on screener surveys? And thanks for playing along. And of course, special thanks to Charlene for giving us a realistic example that we could use as our improv basis. Kayleen says, whisper, whisper. I know. I don't know what's going on right now. Hello? Maggie, is she okay? Anyway, I have no idea if LinkedIn Live is going to work ever again, so feel free to join me just on YouTube. I am not sure what's going on with LinkedIn Live, and I am so tired of playing their game. So, again, please spread the word about the YouTube channel and all the fun we have here and all the lessons and interviews and stuff. I would really love to see more people subscribing and joining our adventures just for fun. I don't really monetize it very much, just for the fun of knowing more of you are here. We also have the Slack workspace, which has over 800 members, but usually about 100 active people at any given time. deltacx.link/join Slack. Of course, usability test the subscribe button and empathize with the like button. And I am in the process of uploading all the videos from Concentric, so the conference we held in May. So those are going to be up soon. Sorry about the delay. I was not expecting to get that new job, and it has just been full on. Kayleen says, what happened with LinkedIn Live? I went to set it up today with, because each time I do this, I have to set up the title that's going to go out on these things. And I went to set up the title, and it said, cannot work with LinkedIn Live, and it was like all broken and weird. And then it was trying to get me to stream directly to LinkedIn Live, but that would mean I wouldn't see y'all in my chat room. You know, that little bacon strip that the bacon strip brings in my YouTube chat and my LinkedIn chat into one place, which means I don't have to keep flipping back and forth to a YouTube chat and a LinkedIn chat. But the service I use for that couldn't connect to LinkedIn, so I thought, well, what's the purpose of streaming to LinkedIn if I won't be able to see people's questions? That's just going to make everybody mad at me. They're going to think I'm ignoring them. So I figured just stream to YouTube until we figure out what's going on here. So let's see if I have an answer from support. Yes, support says, we are currently facing an issue adding LinkedIn Live. The engineers are aware of the situation, and they're hoping for a quick resolution. You receive an email when they reply. Okay, so it sounds like it's something with my system that does like my chat aggregation, and so LinkedIn Live might be back, but I would still rather people visit on YouTube. It's got fun emojis and stuff. All right. Well, thanks to everybody who joined in. I'll see everybody tomorrow for Office Hours Ask Me Anything. Remember, you can ask anything ahead of time with deltacx.link/ask. Fun heads up for Friday's reaction stream. Please send in deltacx.link/reaction. I've bought 2 new video effects to match some of the things that have been going on in the reaction stream. So, and yes, I pay for the video effects. I don't make them or steal them. So I bought 2 new video effects for reaction stream. I hope people will enjoy them. Remember when we only had confetti and it made Maggie so happy that I started buying more? So there you go. Thanks again for joining. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, put them down in the YouTube chat. I have the YouTube Studio app on my phone. If you ask a question after watching this video, I will see it and I will respond to it. So questions are welcome. Thanks, everybody. Be well, wear 27 masks, and I will see everybody tomorrow for office hours. Customer centricity as business intelligence. Visit deltacx.com to learn why we are